Hello, welcome. I'm Michael Chugg. I'm sitting in my apartment in Surrey Hills in the city of Sydney, and I'm about to spend hopefully a very entertaining 45 minutes with my mate Steve Strange. And here he is. I'm a promoter in Australia. I also run a label and manage bands. And one of the bands I co-manage with Steve actually, and they're called Shepherd. And
Right.
Steve and I go way back. I think we met, it's got to be sometime in the 80s, and we've been best mates ever since. When we were younger, we used to get into a lot of trouble, but we've all calmed down a bit now.
There's a lot of stories that could be told in that department.
Yes, which won't
we're
be
not,
told
We're not
today.
going to go there today, are we, Michael?
No, we're not, Steve. So, I've been wanting to come to this conference for many years, and it was in my diary to come, but we've had to do it via the internet and digitally. So here we are. Steve, why don't you give us a bit of your background and history? And as you can probably tell, Steve has got a very severe Irish accent, but don't hold that against him because my Australian accent's probably pretty grating as well.
Well, it's one of those things that never leave you, Michael. You only lose your accent if you want to, and I'm proud for being Irish, so I've no intentions of losing mine. Well, let's get to it, I suppose. I was brought up in Northern Ireland in the middle of the Troubles, which was a pretty extreme time for anyone at in Northern Ireland. But when you grow up with that, it becomes just normal life. We didn't know what else to compare it to. So, as these army trucks were rolling past you with, soldiers pointing guns at you or bombs going off, it felt like the norm. And, that's how we grew up. I became a musician from an early age. I was very taken by music from an early age, listened to music since, for as long as I've ever known. And then I got the musician bug sometime around my early teens. Started picking up drums at about 13. Played in a bunch of local bands, and by 17, 18, I was playing in a couple of, decent size acts in Northern Ireland. Got a record deal with the band I was in. And basically, we moved to London. Our management moved us to London. Our label moved us to London. And I've been there pretty much ever since. And that was in 86, 87. So from there, the band that I was in split up. I joined another band for a while called Fastway with Fast Eddie Clark, who was very famous at the time because he was the guitar player in Motorhead. He was one of the original classic Motorhead period players. And I played with him up until a point where I became an agent. I met a couple of people that I knew that were doing agency. And that's how I got into the business. I sort of shifted from being a musician into learning how to be an agent because I ended up booking all my own shows. Say my own shows, the bands that I was playing in the early days, I was booking shows, and I enjoyed that so much. It felt like a natural fit for me. And that's the early part of my career.
What was the first agency you were with?
The first agency I was with was for a short time was Braun Agency back in the late 80s.
Right.
And then I moved from there. I was at another little heavy rock agency called Big Rock Talent, and from there I moved to Prestige for a while. Prestige Talent was a pretty major agency back in back at that period. It was owned by Miles Copeland and Phil Banfield, and
Yes, I
so I
remember. I
worked
think
there
that's
for a while.
I think that's where we first met.
Yeah, and I think it was actually.
Yeah.
And then from there, I moved back to Ireland for a year, and I promoted shows. I just found it too difficult to be able to survive in London financially at the time, and I needed to go and pick up the pick up the finances again and come back whenever I could afford to give it a proper go. And I'd done that successfully the second time around.
And that's when you went to Helter Skelter, yeah?
No, I went initially, but I joined along with Rob Chalice at Forward Agency Booking. Rob was doing good at the time. He had a boutique agency. It was myself, him, and Nigel Morton at the time, and we were all part of a team. And then I went to solo with John Giddings after that. And I spent a year and a half to 2 years there before going to Fair Warning Wasted Talent, which morphed into Helter Skelter after later on. Same company, just a different brand.
Yeah. So I mean, the last 10 months now has been pretty difficult for all of us with all the restrictions. Right now, you're probably in the heaviest lockdown that the UK's been in. It's been very difficult times. And so, you would normally be backwards and forwards to Los Angeles, where you have a house and you work out of the Paradigm offices there. What have you been doing since all this started?
Oh, well, I was in Los Angeles last January and February, and little did I know at the time that things were going to end up the way that they ended up. I was flying back actually for ILMC, so I come back right at the tail end of last couple of days of February of last year. There was, like the COVID thing had already broken, obviously through Asia at that point, and you could start to see signs of it spreading beyond Asia. If you remember the big cruise ship that got quarantined when it hit the California shores, where there was a lot of infected people on that ship. That happened just prior to me leaving. And by the time I got to LAX for my return journey home, everyone was wearing a mask in the airport, even at that early point. And that was like, as I say, late February. And since I arrived back, ILMC was pretty much the last thing I attended before everything completely closed down, and later in that month. But I had met someone at ILMC who actually had the virus. She was a promoter from Greece, and several people, not just me, had also been in contact with the lady in question, and who's a very nice lady, by the way. Nothing to do with her. I feel sorry for the fact that she happened to be the one who had been discovered for carrying or having the virus at the time. But I took pretty much from that point on up until lockdown. I isolated myself at that period.
Mm-hmm.
So I went into isolation 2 weeks prior to the actual lockdown happening. So from the pretty much the start of March, I was confined to my own home, and it's been pretty bad ever since. Obviously, things laxed off at certain periods. Like the initial lockdown started to soften, and eventually, bars and restaurants started to open up again. So I was able to meet friends in a social distancing sense. I was able to start going for Sunday lunch with people that I hadn't seen for a while. But I was very careful throughout the whole thing. I was, I've got sleep apnea, which is a breathing situation, and I didn't want to risk, no one wants to risk taking the having this virus. But if you have any problems at all with breathing, you need to be extra careful. So I decided that I wasn't going to let myself be put in a vulnerable position there.
I mean, for someone like you who would go to anywhere from 5 to a dozen shows a week, the last 10 months has been a real change, hasn't it? It's unbelievable. This is the longest that I have not flown internationally since 1972. So it's been quite different. It's been a total climate change, and I know that for someone like you who loves going to live shows, it must really drive you crazy sometimes.
Oh, 100%. Like getting back to what you said before, I've got a house in Los Angeles. I spend pretty much 5 to 5.5 months of the year in Los Angeles, working between there and London, and it to not be able to have done that in over a year or heading up to a year now, it's been incredibly hard to fathom. But at the end of the day, you just have to roll with the punch. It is what it is. I miss Los Angeles a lot, but then again, they're getting it bad over there too, and Los Angeles is a place when things are in crisis, they start to fall apart a lot over there. So, I'm pretty much better over here probably.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it is, and we're very lucky that we're an island. But a lot of acts filled in 2020 with recording, releasing new music, doing special streaming events, doing fan shows for their fans a couple of times a week, doing some streaming concerts, releasing old footage from old archival footage for people to watch. And on the other side of things, some artists, particularly in America, I seem to think, have put down their tools and done very little, where for some it's been an incredible creative time. I mean, what stood out for you during all this? I mean, for me, I've learned how to use the internet, and I've become a bit of an expert at maximising what you can do on the internet. And I'm just wondering what's really stood out for you.
Well, what stood out for me really is that, as you say, for artists, the fact that that they're locked down with everyone else, it gives them a chance to get creative about what they're doing, prolifically, in their writing, in their writing formats. And many of my artists have actually just been working away at their songs, in their home studios, bouncing ideas and files back and forth with other members of their bands, and starting to create new music. It's a time for creating new music, and you can either sit there and stew and not do anything and curse the world for the problem that we're in, or unless you just get creative, you rise above it, and you take advantage of the situation.
The one thing that I've noticed is that the fans, the people on the other end of the internet watching bands doing their own thing and communicating, are really, really loving it because they got nothing else to do. I mean, you've got an amazing roster of acts, and if you just want to reel a few of those off so that people who may not know your history that well can see, you know, how involved you are and how many of the major acts in the world you're involved with. And I know that some of them have been doing quite a lot.
Yeah, no, listen, I work in, I've got a very broad taste in music. I like to think so anyway. You know, I like to
Yep.
think that I've got a, you know, a very broad mind when it comes down to my musical tastes. So, you know, pretty, you know, pretty big palette for that. You know, the artists I work with, some of the bigger artists, so obviously Coldplay. You know, I've been looking after Coldplay since very early doors. I've been looking after Eminem, who's another one of my clients, for many, many, many years, pretty much from the beginning of his international career, from a live perspective. I've been looking after Queens of the Stone Age before Josh had even come up with the name Queens of the Stone Age. Well, he was toying with the name, but he hadn't even confirmed that that's what they were going to be called at the time. So I've been working with them before they played even their first ever show. Um, I look after various different things like I do Bright Eyes and Phoebe Bridgers, who's breaking through at the minute in a big way. You know, she's nominated for 4 Grammys at present. She's doing incredibly well. I look after, you know, artists as diverse as Alice in Chains, right through to Bright Eyes, from Bright Eyes through to M Ward, through to Modest Mouse, to Lindsey Buckingham, to My Bloody Valentine, to Snow Patrol, to Ash. You know, I could go on. You know, and some classic UK bands such as the Charlatans and Echo and the Bunnymen, who I've been doing for many years. You know,
And of course, you're the agent and co-manager of Shepherd, who
Shepherd, yes,
we look after together.
We do.
Have you signed any new acts in the last 10 months?
Yes, I have. I've signed a couple. Myself and Sean in my office have signed a new Scottish artist called Luke Lavolpe, who we're very proud of taking on. He's a very big talent, good friend of that whole Scottish world, and you know, like Luke is, you know, I think is going to break through very soon. And another artist I've taken on is an Irish artist called Lucy Blue. She had a bidding war, believe it or not, through this whole pandemic, with 6 labels trying to sign her. She ended up signing with Columbia in the end, through Ferdy at Columbia, who's the head of Columbia over here.
Yeah.
It's a massive priority. She's an incredible pop artist. You know, she's got a very young demographical audience, and that she's going to be an absolute monster of a star. You know, really, really proud of what she's doing, and yeah, so she's definitely going to break. I would put money on it.
That's great.
Other newer artists that I've taken on, you know, just prior to the pandemic over the last 2 or 3 years, which like one act is the Fever 333, which again I work along with Sean Faulkner in my office with. We're a bit of a dynamic partnership there on that one. Peter Katz is the manager, great guy.
Oh yeah,
an old friend of mine, but they're breaking all over the world. They're doing really, really well. We've got them up to playing, 3,000 to 4,000 capacities in some markets now. You know, they're highly billed on festivals. And another act that I'm very hopeful for, which has done incredibly well in America at the end of the year polls, and has built up a serious fan base, and it's building throughout the rest of the world now. Is a band called I Don't Know How, which is Dallin
Right.
Weeks. Dallin Weeks used to be in Panic at the Disco, but this band are incredible. It's got a very alternative, near enough 80s sounding style act, but 80s in a very credible way. You know,
Right.
it's a very modern sound, but it's got the hallmarks of an 80s sound. And actually, they got their name from Back to the Future, where the professor goes, "I don't know how, but they found me." You know,
Right.
remember when the Libyans discovered him in the car park? So, yeah, that was.
I was actually watching that movie the other night. I mean, you know, it's getting down to what just watching old stuff now. I mean, it's very frustrating that you've got all these young acts that, if everything was normal, it'd probably be blowing up a storm all over the world. And of course, some using the internet are building their fan bases. I mean, it's quite incredible, given that 2021 has probably started as bad, if not worse, than 2020 ended. How do you see the year rolling out?
Well, it's it's going to be very much down to how effective and how quickly that they can distribute this vaccine, or various vaccines that they're discovering now. Mainly, quite a few have come from Europe or the UK. You know, the Oxford vaccination is becoming very well known. As so, you know, countries like Belgium and Germany have developed their own vaccines that are which are taking effect. And if we can get those out, the problem with touring Europe is that every country has a different a different set of rules and a different mindset. So,
and now that with Brexit, now it's making it even harder, right?
It is, absolutely. You know, it's
so,
you know,
I mean, like for an Australian act, no longer can we just get one visa and go do England and all of Europe. You've got to do it all separately now. So it's going to be harder there for everybody.
Yeah, and it's also going to make it more expensive, unfortunately, for the international touring artist. You know, because every visa process, you know, is gonna cost money. You know, like they're not gonna they're not gonna do this administration for nothing. You know, and
no, that's right.
You know, like it was such a terrible mistake. You know, putting the Brexit thing to a referendum like that. It was that we should be part of. We should be still part of the European Union. That's my opinion anyway, and I know it's shared by many people in my profession for sure. You know, like
a lot of people who voted to get out now wish they hadn't. That's for sure. And,
well, because they didn't. A lot of them didn't know what they were voting for. You know, that's the problem.
Yeah,
you know, it was complete ignorance to a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we could get into American politics, but we won't go there. I think everybody's had enough of that one.
Oh my God. Yeah, we would need the entire conference to finish off that conversation.
As promoters here in Australia, we are basically looking at, our international borders are not going to open until Europe and in the UK and America have got down on the other side a long way. I mean, I think the vaccine's going to help a lot, but it's not going to cure people. It's only going to prevent other people from getting it. And I mean, we down here can't see our borders opening and international acts coming down here till 2022.
Yeah, well, all my Australian tours or planning tours are in that period. Like I've got nothing in 21 at all. Nothing.
Yeah, we
Because
had some international tours planned for 2020, which we've moved to the end of 2021, and we're probably going to have to move them again. And I know there's some tours in Europe that are going through the same thing. Have you got many of those?
An entire roster full of them. Well, let's just say that the last few months haven't remained. I haven't been idle. Some of these tours that we've had we've ended up having to move to sometimes in the process of a third time coming up. Because no one. We thought at the time, if we move things, to the end of the year, that was going to be good. Then we would move things from the end of the year to May, June, and then that starts to look delicate now, because now we're into the year off. It always seems so far away, when you look at the start of December, but at the start of January, it dawns on you, shit, this is the same year. As we're talking about these shows and it becomes, the hammer falls on your brain and goes, shit, this is the real deal now. We're having to deal with something that's literally not just round the corner. It's in, it's in front of you in the headlights, Yeah,
it sure is. I mean, I know the artists are starting to really get a bit over doing streaming events and, communicating via internet to their and socials to their punters and their fans. But I don't see any other way around it right now. I like when we spoke, I think it would have been in November, you were very hopeful that the festivals, the summer festivals coming up August, September this year, July, August, September would happen. But I suppose that's all gone now.
Listen, being the eternal optimist as one tries to be, I would hope that at least August and September still may have a shot. And listen, I hope I would love June and July to have a shot too, but I think it's in all honesty, it's every day and every week that goes past. It seems less likely that that those May, June tours are going to happen. I want them to, trust me, I do. But I can't guarantee them. Like when our managers are asking us, who've got a bunch of festivals in June or headline dates in June. And they go, do you think that this is realistically going to happen? And I have to throw my hands up and go, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I don't have a magic wand and I don't have a crystal ball. And it's going to, I cannot see them getting this vaccine distributed quick enough for to have the world in a safe enough place by May, to be able to have these camping festivals mainly. Camping festivals are going to be the worst affected because people are living in close proximity with each other in tents. Maybe, I think one day standalone events or city festivals where people go back home or go to hotels, they may have a better shot than the likes of a Glastonbury. But even by saying that, I would love Glastonbury to happen. I know that they haven't said no yet, and I'm God bless them. I hope they work through this and try to make it happen. But I can only but hope that their predictions and goodwill factors come into effect for them. But
go on.
I was going to say it's going to be very hard to put 200,000 people or whatever the exact amount of Glastonbury into that the city that they create down there in Somerset every year, how they're going to allow that to be able to happen. If they do, they've got my blessing, as long as it's safe and people are able to, be able to get on with their lives and not and it not affecting other people's lives.
One of the biggest problems, I think, is that, if you got the go-ahead to start doing stuff in August, it's going to take 2 to 3 months to work out the roadmap of the restrictions and what you can and can't do before you can even go on sale. So it's really starting to push everything right back now, from what I can see. The camping down here, I mean, we run a couple of big camping festivals, and down here you can only have 2 to 4 people in a campsite, and every campsite's got to be 15 metres apart. So you do that, all of a sudden your camping grounds go from 10,000 capacity to about 2,000. So it's very hard. It'll be super, super hard to do 3-day festivals.
And that takes the economic viability out of it, whenever
totally,
you do that.
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, I've got a lot of young people, and I'm sure you do. What advice would you give to aspiring young people who want to, more and more people wanted to get into the music business and want to get into the music business? Before COVID came along, there was an incredible amount of young people coming out of uni or high school, wanting to manage bands, wanting to be an agent, wanting to be an A&R at the record companies, wanting to be in PR, wanting to learn how to be a promoter, or even young guys who wanted to form bands. I mean, what would your advice be on how to move forward right now for these young people?
It is a difficult one because obviously, we don't have the ability of being able to go out and socialize, meet people, have meetings with people. It's all very well that we can all have Zoom calls together, but we know who we're having the Zoom calls with. Like if you want to try to get hold of someone, it's incredibly difficult at the minute. I think it's, you just have to take the advice, of what many of us done back in the day. And that was just keep trying to knock the doors down, do it via your socials now, as opposed to turning up at someone's reception, and just get creative and don't take no for an answer. Go with your gut instinct.
Yeah, well, there's hundreds of young bands out there putting music up on the web and starting their own socials. I mean, you could just go to one of them and say, "Hey, would you like me to be your manager?" And I'm sure a lot of them would jump at it right now because
that's it. It's a time of discovery, and I think, like if you're a manager, you've got a lot of time in your hands at the minute. You can sit and you can search so many things on the social front, on the TikToks, on Instagrams and the Twitters and this world. You can go and really you use your ability just to go listen to different Spotify lists. Go and Spotify is such a great tool in many ways. You can get it casts the net out so far, and you can get a chance to listen to a lot of new music. I advise people to take those opportunities and then go and find out who that artist is, whether they've got a manager, whether they've got an agent. Go and, form their own little, bedroom, their own bedroom boutique agency or management company, and just go for it. There's nothing to stop you. And
it'd be quite funny. You could have a number one hit with a band you've never met.
Yeah. Well, it's the new norm.
Yes, sure. It certainly is. So once it all, and I don't know whether it's all ever going to get back to the way it was. I'm sure that once it opens up, the amount of people wanting to do shows and go to shows is going to be quite amazing. Although, in when it sort of loosened up here in November, December, when we had 0 cases everywhere, and Victoria had got out of their second wave. There started to be some concerts, all socially distanced, like a venue like Kudos Arena where you could put 15,000, they were putting 5,000. But a lot of people didn't go to the shows because they're still worried about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to keep happening, but we just got to hope it doesn't. I mean, with all the streaming events, and I mean, I know a lot of acts have been doing pay-per-view stuff, and
Yeah.
it hasn't got as huge as it should. But when it does come back and bands are on the road and they're playing Madison Square Garden or O2 in London, I would think, and I want to get your view on this, I would think that a lot of those events will be streamed worldwide or on pay-to-view on cable channels and things like that.
Well, I think it's become such an important tool at the minute, given this pandemic, given the lockdowns worldwide. It's the one and only thing that really connects everyone together. Is like, I wish I had shares in Zoom, for instance. Yeah, I think that would have been a nice thing to have a few pound in, that's for sure. But
yes, it certainly would.
But I think it's going to, there's nothing will ever really beat the proper live experience, though. It's
No.
much as you can, you can put an artist in a venue, you can put a bunch of cameras around it, and you can film it, make the lighting nice and moody, and do this, that, and the other. It's never really going to replace the atmosphere of a real live audience, especially a live audience that's bouncing up and down and, being carried over the top of them, and, where they're crowd surfing or whatever style of music you're doing. Nothing beats that live atmosphere. But,
No,
we have to live within what we can do at the minute. And these shows and these webcasts and web shows have become a very vital tool for not just the artist but for the audience. So that
even for the industry. I mean, I've done a few conferences, and one would hope that there's a lot of people out there watching us and listening to us now. The hardest thing about it is that there's nobody in the audience standing up calling us arseholes and contradicting us.
Yeah, well, that's true.
I think it's important and to keep the communication going. And I know the media have all been pretty supportive, and everybody's being as supportive as they can. We're very lucky down here that our government has this thing called JobKeeper, where we've been able to keep our staff paid and employed. There's obviously worldwide, there's hundreds and thousands of people not getting paid and not getting any work. And of course, it certainly, I know, and I'm sure you do too, a lot of stories about how bad some of the road crews and people like that are suffering everywhere.
Well, I don't know, but a lot of every Christmas, like a management companies or promoters, would send you a Christmas gift. We've made sure to tell everyone that what we're doing, what I personally and my team have been doing this year is putting money into the crew funds and making sure. I made a couple of different donations to different crew funds myself, but persuading and letting other, other people that would have normally sent you something, just to stop them at the cross and say, look, we would really prefer if you,
Yeah.
if you were going to do anything like this, don't get me the champagne, because number one, I'm not drinking at present, so don't get me any champagne. And what you would have got for champagne, put that money into helping some guy who's out of work because he can't work because he's a crew guy, And these
That's
people
right.
have really, really suffered badly over the last year, really badly.
Yeah, they certainly have. Yeah, I wish we could all be together, and I wish we were in Europe right now, having a crazy time at this conference. But I hope everybody's been enjoying it. I know that the organisation have worked really hard to get this up and running, and I'm really honoured to be able to talk to you. And
You
we're
too,
not
mate.
we're not telling dirty stories or laughing as much as we normally would, but we
Well,
don't want to get blanked, do we?
yeah, no, this has been a fun experience, and
So, you know, just I suppose one question I should ask is, do you have any unfulfilled ambitions or dreams you would like to share with the people watching tonight? I mean, one of the great things about, I suppose, and I know you and I certainly, we didn't get into this business. Well, it wasn't a business really when I got into it in the 70s, early 70s, but we got into it because we love music.
yeah,
And, success and money and all that comes as you succeed. I mean, and you have success. And have you got any unfulfilled dreams and ambitions that you'd like to share with us, brother?
well, I would nothing to do with music this one, but I would like to learn how to play golf better. Because every time I go to America, every bloody person I know plays golf, and I want to learn how to play golf more, and I want to
I
start.
love it.
I've been getting myself fitter, and I go for a lot of walks these days. I'm very blessed here to have Regent's Park so close by to me, and Primrose Hill, so I get to go for nice 8 to 10 kilometer walks regularly. But I think unfilled ambitions. I just want to be the best at what I do, and and more importantly, to grow with the changing world that we're in. I don't want to be left behind. I don't ever want to be called a dinosaur, and I always want to be, ahead of the game rather than behind it. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, it's one of the exciting things about it to be ahead of the game. I mean, this year has been an amazing year for our label and management company where we've really
Yeah,
got ahead of the game.
congratulations on
And this year, just on Spotify, between 3 acts, we've had nearly 300 million streams,
that.
which is
Wow.
pretty huge when you look at it. And when all this started, it was like, well, you're not going to be able to survive. But in actual fact, everybody's surviving because we still all believe in what we're doing.
Yeah, well,
And I know that you feel the same way.
100%. Well, listen, what drives us all is our passion for music and our passion to do well by our clients. That's what we try to do. Simple as that. And you've done it for all of your career, and I've like to think that I've done it with mine.
Yeah, I need to get out and lose about 20 kilos at the moment, but anyway, we'll stick to that. I've become a bit of a horse racing expert too. I'm not having any bets, but I'm watching the horse racing.
Yeah. As long as you
I'm
don't start
thinking about.
commentating, as long as you don't start
I used.
commentating again.
I got fired. I got fired when I was 19 for saying fuck on the radio. I don't think they'd let me back. But what I
Yeah.
am thinking of doing is I'm thinking of managing female jockeys. They're becoming one of the big things in horse racing.
Wow.
Because of the way they ride and the sweetness of their hands and the way they get on with the horses. I mean, there's last Saturday, for instance, and I know this isn't really, it's a bit of trivia though. Last Saturday, across the 5 capital cities in Australia, there were 45 horse races, and 34% of those races were won by female jockeys.
Wow.
Pretty exciting. So, the way female artists are becoming, huge in the world of music, and there's so many of them, it's the same in a lot of things.
Wow, that's
it's interesting. So, I've always had a lot of female staff, as you have, and it's been great to keep that rolling.
Absolutely.
Well, is there anything else you want to say, my brother? I think we've just about run out of time. At this point of time, we'd normally be calling for questions and listening to people like Aussie Hoppy and
Harvey.
Some of them, and Harvey. Oh, dear.
God bless him. We love Harvey.
Boring us to death, but unfortunately, there's just the two of us, Sunshine. It's good to talk to you, and I hope everybody who's joined us for the last 45 minutes or so have really had a good time. And we hope you've learned something, or at least we've stopped you from being bored and looking at the walls of your apartment for an hour.
Indeed.
So take care, Steve, and to everybody in Europe and around the world watching this event. Have a great one, and hopefully we'll see you somewhere down the road.
Definitely. All right. Well, thanks, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it, and look forward to seeing you when all of this clears past us. See you later.